Tyler Dunne joining us on the Western Hotline. Go longtd.com. He wrote a long piece about Dalton Kincaid yesterday. Tyler, we're talking about that drop. You talked to Kincaid, you wrote about it, and wrote about his reaction to it. And, I'm sure it's not something that he's breaking down the way that we just did, because he just probably looks at it in a binary, should have caught it, would have caught it, didn't catch it kind of thing. And it's something that, you laid out in your piece pretty well. His teammates talked to him about, and it's something that he'll have to kind of come back from here.
No doubt, fellas, and thanks for having me on to discuss. In these conversations with these players, it's kind of like there's that elephant in the room, and neither one of us know that it can be avoided, but you don't really know, does the player want to discuss, the worst moment of his sports life? Probably not right off the bat, right? But to Dalton Kincaid's credit, he's staring down his demons face-to-face right now because he did it in the moment, right after it. He's in the locker room at Kansas City, and, guys are consoling him. Everything's, really emotional for good reason. There's tears, all of that. And he said that the person who really helped him snap out of that state and get to this point where he can feel good about 2025, and he attacked everything in the offseason the way he did, that player was Micah Hyde, right? We're all kind of wondering, why is Hyde even around on the practice squad that final month of the season? I think it's for moments like this where Hyde went up to him, and we can only say so much on the AM radio airwaves here, but said, effing wipe those tears away. Face the media, face the music. You need to talk about this right now. And he said, I wish I had somebody like that kind of giving me that tough love. He went through a similar play 11 years ago with Green Bay, dropping a Colin Kaepernick interception that could have won Green Bay that wild card game at Lambeau. So Dalton Kincaid really pointed to that moment. Micah Hyde kind of being, abrasive, maybe a little strong, but giving him some tough love. Yeah. And that's exactly what he did. He wiped the tears away, boarded that flight back, got back to Buffalo, watched the film, right? They don't have to watch the film. I remember back in the 13 seconds game, a lot of coaches, they didn't watch that film. They don't have to. The season's over. He watched that film. He met with McDermott, met with Bean, and just immediately attacked the offseason the way he did.
Yeah. Tyler's got a piece up his website, golongtd.com. You can go become a subscriber. You get really long-form stories, in-depth looks, in-depth conversations with players, with coaches, all that coverage around the NFL. Tyler, all right, let's talk Kincaid's comeback here. Because even without that drop, I feel like 2 years in, Bills fans have seen quite a bit from him, and there's lots to like, but there's more to be desired. How much do you feel like Kincaid feels that there's more that he can show, more that he can prove, whether it's being healthy or being a bigger part of the offense? What is Kincaid right now in terms of his drive to show he can do more?
Look, I get it. It's July, and everybody's in the best shape of their life, and every storyline and every one of the 32 NFL markets is going to be flowery and bubbly and rainbows and puppies. That's just the nature of this time of year. I genuinely buy that Dalton Kincaid is going to blow up in year 3 for a million reasons, and a lot of it's physical. Both knees, as we've kind of gotten into in the past, were in bad shape. He couldn't even really bend them. He had the PCL in one, bursitis in the other, just fluid building up and not really knowing what in the hell going on. So once he figured that out, okay, here's what I had, and he still Googles it. What is it called? The Morale Leviel, or I'm probably mispronouncing it. But I think it's more psychological because you go through history, you look at all these tight end greats, so many of these guys, they face this moment early in their career. George Kittle at Iowa, he had to meet with a sports psychologist. He had all kinds of anxiety. He started drawing a red dot on his wrist tape, slammed it after every bad play, kind of reset mentally. That was his thing. Tony Gonzalez, who Dalton Kincaid looked up to as his favorite player growing up, he had 16 drops in year 2. He was terrible. And Dalton Kincaid, it didn't get this bad for him. Gonzalez is locking himself in a bedroom, drinking Jack and Cokes, depressed, and he basically had to literally look in the mirror and say, look, I think I'm doing everything I got to do, everything the coaches say, I've got to do more. And that's kind of when he started his legendary routine of catching 100 balls before every single practice. There's all of these tight ends had this man in the mirror moment where everything kind of clicks. And I think you have to face those demons kind of head on. You can't just bury it and never watch that film and and pretend like that play at Kansas City didn't happen, which, by the way, it's a hard play to make, but one Dalton Kincaid knows he should make. And I think the fact that he kind of faced it head on is huge. And this is somebody who is far more mentally tough, physically tough than I certainly thought. I mean, he played with cracks in his back, and his tight ends coach at Utah gets into that in our story. I mean, literal cracks in the vertebrae, played the Pac-12 championship game, wanted to play in the bowl game, which guys don't want to play in anyways. So he's that, and he's hungry. I think there's a competitive fire to Dalton Kincaid that, yeah, to your point, Jeremy, like, he knows the stakes. He knows the team's counting on him. And he knows that they're going to get to the Super Bowl. He's probably going to have to make that play in that moment in the playoffs again.
Tyler Dunne, golongtd.com with us. It sounds like, too, like there's toughness in fighting through all that, and then there's also preventing those injuries, which is a little bit of kind of what the Bills sounded like at the end of the season, Tyler. But him living here throughout the winter and going to the facility kind of sounds like he took all of that very seriously.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Everybody listening knows what this winter was like. I mean, Western New York in February, March, April. This one especially, it just dragged and dragged. And a lot of these players, they can't wait to get the hell out of here, right? They lose a playoff game, and they're gone. Like, they're going to a beach. They're going to their families. They're not to be seen again until everybody's got a report for workouts in April. So that's like the inclination is to hit eject, especially after a game and a play like that. But he took, Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott were blunt. They wanted him to strengthen up. Armor up, I think, is the term that Brandon Beane has used a lot. And he didn't want to waste any time. He took a few weekend trips, and I know his parents in Las Vegas, that's where he's from, they came out to Orchard Park and spent a little time with him. But pretty much the entire offseason, Dalton Kincaid is here in Western New York. It's just him and his golden doodle. They go to Knox State Farm Park. They hit Chestnut Ridge up. They walk around Orchard Park. Other than that, he's at One Hills Drive, and he's lifting weights and more weights and more weights. And that's the concern, right? Like, is he going to beef up and become, I don't know, pick your 90s tight end, Mark Bruner, Jay Remersma. I heard McDermott's comment, and you wonder, all right, you got this rare weapon. You don't want to, overcompensate. And he insisted that the conversations with the GM, with the head coach, and the training staff were daily. And they did believe there was this needle to thread, get to 245, rock solid, don't get up to 260, and always incorporate agility drills, athletic type movements that he's going to need to implement on the field. So I think Will Greenberg really took the lead on all of this, right? He's had a strength, and he's kind of working all these different exercises in there. But don't get it twisted. They're lifting a lot of weights, and he's planning on lifting weights throughout the season. I think that was his mistake looking back is, maybe it's that basketball pass, right? Like, you wonder, is this going to throw off my jump shot if I'm lifting weights? But he saw Matt Collins lift weights in October, November, December, and still be fresh, still feel good the entire season. And I know that this year, that's what Dalton Kincaid plans on doing.
Tyler Dunne, golongtd.com. He has a big, long piece on Dalton Kincaid, his latest that he's dropped at his website. You can check that out. Tyler, as we look for year 3, you're saying you're expecting a breakout. Did you get any sense from Kincaid about you said he knows the stakes. This is a team in the AFC Championship game last season. They're favored in every game they play this year. Mm-hmm. I feel like one of the big things about these Bills is last year they were able to say no one believes in us. They think we're going to be bad. You could find somebody picking them to not win the division. And this year, they're right back to living in the pressure cooker. And I wonder if you got any sense of that from Kincaid or the other players you spoke to about him, about where this team really does sit in regards to the NFL. Like, this is a team that the league looks at and thinks they should be in it. They should win one here. And that comes with a certain level of pressure.
It does. Yeah, I don't think and even last year, I know that was the hard sell, and look, and I guess to the Bills' credit, they probably spliced up the clips of people in the national media doubting them. There were those folks out there, but I mean, for the love of God, as long as you've got Josh Allen, you're going to be competing for a Super Bowl year in and year out. So I don't know. I think inherently that pressure has always been there. I think it's since 2020 really when he blew up that COVID season. I mean, it's Super Bowl or bust year in and year out, and that's what everybody should be thinking. And yeah, I guess I'm trying to think back to the conversation with Dalton. He brought up Super Bowl, when I asked him, what do you expect out of yourself? What should everybody kind of envision if Dalton Kincaid is doing his thing? And he's like, moving good, feeling good, able to cut and bend and work with a reigning MVP. But he said again and again, it's all about the Super Bowl. Like, he didn't care about anything else other than winning a Super Bowl. And it's, I think we can kind of take that for granted. Like, but for a whole generation, you wouldn't hear anything like that being said from any Bills player or any Bills coach. It was so out of the realm of possibility that nobody's even thinking that. So for him to kind of nonchalantly just, reference that, like, I think it is Super Bowl or bust. I mean, everybody wants to slam that button that simulates the January. They should win the division. They should get into the playoffs. Maybe they even get that first-round bye. And I think that's maybe the message for Sean McDermott is, okay, if you're trying to figure out a message to sell for the Bills, that's probably it, because that's something they haven't been able to lock down. They haven't been able to rest that week and then host a Houston Texans as opposed to a Baltimore Ravens. It's a small thing. We're kind of working around the fringes, but earning that number 1 seed as opposed to the number 2 and hosting an AFC championship game, which would be the last game in that stadium. I can't imagine the energy. That could be a goal, right? That could be something that you rally around if you're the Buffalo Bills.
Tyler Dunne, golongtd.com. Tyler, thanks for the time. Anybody wants to subscribe, I would highly recommend. Always great work, Tyler. golongtd.com. And the latest pieces from Tyler on Dalton Kincaid. Thanks, Tyler.
Hey, I appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for having me.